was my first husband's favorite song that he sang over and over before he passed. And every time I heard it for 5 years, I went into tears. So Mitsuber knows that. And it's a song that's about cracking open our hearts. It's about surrendering to Spirit. It's about knowing that we are not alone, that we are a part of the One, that we are a voice of Spirit in the world. And as I talk about paradox, being a part of the world, of seeing what's going on in the world that makes us so irate. And we talk about getting comfortable with discomfort, right? And so the initial way I was going to talk about this is that there is always change going on, and we just need to be comfortable with not having things the way that we've always had them, and that they're always evolving. And so we need to be comfortable with that evolving, with that happening. But it also means that we need to say enough is enough. We don't need to just stuff those feelings and let it be. We need to say, this time, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to let that Spirit within me that's calling something forward to be different, and that is what I am a part of. And if I have to surrender everything that I know, everything that I've stood for, I'm going to go deeper and connect into who I am and what I know Spirit is, and let that come forth. And do it with courage and with vulnerability, and knowing that I'm not going to get it right the first time out of the block, right? But I'm going to keep coming, and I'm not alone. And that is what I want to talk about this morning, right? And so when we have this, we've had this treatment. I gave notice right at the end of June that I was going to be leaving December 1st, and that was what I could intuit. I couldn't see what was happening beyond then. I'm sure that I had a premonition of my son's passing. I'm sure. And so now we have 8 children, well now 7. But so that's part of where our work will be. And then right after that, the landlord gave notice. And so something is going to be changing with the building. We don't know what it is, but we're surrendering the building to its highest and best, and our center to its highest and best, whatever that is. And so we have this treatment that we've been using for our center, to surrendering to what is the future. It won't be the same as it's been, but it's something that's good. And it's about taking care of our members as we have now and opening it up to the greater world. So we are a center of truth and light in the world, right? Of love. We've always stood for love as a center, and that is who we are. It's in our DNA. And so that is our guide forward. For God is love. Spirit is love. And so the other thing about this is that it is not about, in our world we talk a lot about self-care. Take the time. We're so busy. We want to slow down and take care of ourselves. But that's selfish in a way. It's good, but it's selfish in a way because it's really about community care. It's not about giving ourselves so much that we don't take care of ourselves. No. It's about we are part of the whole of the community. And so self-care means really taking care of the whole of Spirit. All of the people, right? We rise and fall together. And this is who we are. And that's how we move from these transactional relationships to these transformative relationships. Talking to all of our son Jordan's friends, there were some really dear friends that were shut out of his life. He didn't know who to trust and who not. And he could have made some better choices, including not shutting out his parents. But we're finding all the people that loved him and have continued to love him, and through all of his challenges that he was facing. And so this is the paradox, and being comfortable with discomfort. And so I'm going to try and compress this a little bit because we're going on. But as we said, paradox is a allowing two things to be true at the same time that don't seem like it is. And that wonderful Latin meaning for paradoxum is seemingly absurd, but really true. When you go to that deeper level, life isn't about what we see on the surface. It's really getting to that deeper level and being whole. So there's a few examples. It was the beginning of the end, right? Or you must give to receive, right? And here's one from the Bible. The Bible is full of paradoxes, by the way. The greatest among you will be your servant. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. That's from Matthew. Now here's another example that may perplex you, the parable of the heap. So let's say that you have a heap that's made up of 1,000,000 grains of sand. Right? A lot of sand. And so let's say you take away one little grain of sand. What do you have? You have a heap of sand. Let's say you take away 10 grains of sand. You still have a heap of sand. But what if you take away 1,000 grains of sand? Do you still have a heap? And if you keep taking away more and more sand, eventually you will have no longer a heap of sand. But which grain of sand was it that transformed it from a heap to something else? The paradox. Some of these things we really can't understand with our conscious minds because they're finite. And spirit, the Creator, is infinite. And the infinite diversity that there is in life, all of these things that seem to be paradoxes are part of that one. And they're welcome, and they're whole, part of the whole. The paradox is one of our, according to Jung, the paradox is one of our most valuable spiritual possessions. Only the paradox comes anywhere to comprehending the fullness of life. We're so used to having our little tunnel vision, and this is the way it is, and we're taught this is right and this is wrong. This is the black and white. This is the way it should be done. This is the way good people do things. But that's only a fraction, a small fraction of the possibilities. Society chooses us to make a choice. Do you like cats or dogs? Well, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference which one you pick, but people can get quite upset about one or the other, or very loyal to their choice. Are you a morning person or a night owl? That can cause a lot of grief in some families, I know, having lived through it. Is it okay to speed on the highway? Well, what if everyone else is? Or what if there are no other cars around? What if it's snowing? Right? What if there's a car in front of you that's already rammed into the car ahead of it? Right? And so there's black and white thinking. Are you a Republican or a Democrat? Are you for me or against me? My way or the highway makes everyone else wrong, unless you agree with me 100%. And we start othering people that are not on our side. We see only the benefits of our side, of course. We have no flaws. And we see only the faults of the other side. They couldn't, whatever they see that thinks that we have something not quite right, well, that couldn't be. And so it really limits the possibilities that we can conceive of. We get stuck in our own rut. And to discover new possibilities, we need to expand our thinking to consider other options. We need to stop thinking of the current conditions as hard and fast and permanent, because they're not. The physical world is always evolving. Change happens. And in the long run, spirit, the timeless, will win out. In the Hindu, they talk about the destruction of, as part of their, there's the creation and the destruction. It's like a eons long game that's being played, right? And so that is the truth. Now, what happens though when someone challenges what we hold as sacrosanct, right? In Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart, she has a great story, and it's goes back to 1954. There was a social psychologist named Leon Fessinger and two associates, and they infiltrated a doomsday cult to find out what would happen when the leader's prophecy failed to be fulfilled. So the leader had promised her followers that the world would end on December 21st, 1954, but they would be picked up by a flying saucer and they would be transported to safety at midnight on December 20th, the night before. So the in the writings, they explained many of the followers, they quit their jobs. They gave away their houses and dispersed their savings in anticipation of the end. Who needs money in outer space, right? And others waited in fear or resignation in their homes. Fessinger predicted that the believers who had not made a strong commitment to the prophecy, they would quietly lose their faith in the leader when the world didn't end. And those who had given away all their possessions and waited with other believers for the spaceship would double down on their belief in her mystical abilities. Double down, really? He predicted that even if the prophecy did not materialize, the followers who had lost the most would demonstrate their increased commitment by doing whatever they could do to get others to join them. And at this time, the hypothesis blew the doors off every existing psychological theory about motivation and human behavior. It was unthinkable that people would double down once proven wrong. Well, by 4:45 a.m., when the spaceship was a no-show, their leader shared a new vision of the world. Because of their faith, they had been spared. All right. And as hypothesized by Fessinger, the most members responded by calling the media with this great news, and they became even more invested in evangelizing for the group. So luckily, the doomsday's prediction was failed, but Fessinger's prediction didn't, and he changed the way we think about human behavior. When people get invested in what they see in front of them as being the reality, what they hear in this physical world, and they're not connected into the truth of spirit, they have doubled down. And I think a lot of what is happening in society today is people doubling down because they fear changing from what they've bought into. They fear being wrong. They fear having to change, of being uncomfortable, that maybe they didn't have all the answers. There's a concept called Jungian thinking that was first coined by the American psychiatrist Albert Rothenberg. 1971, he described Jungian thinking as describing the practice of imagining two or more opposite or contradictory ideas simultaneously. And he saw this as a key element of creativity. You know, it's a very useful way to move out of the rut that we stick in with our black and white opinions. You know, when we demand that the world conform to my way or the highway, it creates cognitive dissonance, right? You start getting all this negative feedback, and people just, it's not, you know, there's something wrong here, and it's not a smooth flow, right? And so there's resistance and animosity when we resist all of that. But if we listen to that cognitive dissonance, and we instead turn within and connect with spirit, we move beyond what's been before. We learn that there are more possibilities, an infinite number of possibilities, really, beyond what we have always accepted as possible. Brene Brown, in Atlas of the Heart, she says, in these challenging moments of dissonance, we need to stay curious and resist choosing comfort over courage. It's brave to invite new information to the table, to sit with it and hear it out. And it's also rare these days, right? We must be willing to listen to other people's perspectives that are different than our own, to contemplate the divine wisdom contained therein. We can consider that we don't have all the answers, and when we are willing to move out of our comfort zone and work with others, together we can create a better way of living and belonging together. You know, one of the things one of Jordan's friends brought up this example. Let's say that we have a beach ball that I have here, and on your side, it's yellow and white and pink. And on my side, I see blue and green. All right? Now, we can stand here talking about this beach ball, and you tell me, yes, it's yellow and pink. But I said, no, it's green and blue. We're both right. But together, we need each other's perspective to see the whole, to see what is greater, right? And so this is a way forward out of this rut and of these challenging of being stuck in our ways and right or wrong, black and white thinking. How many marital arguments start with the idea that my spouse is a spender, but I am a saver? The resolution's not about swinging back and forth or adopting one or the other. It's about finding that balance between these two extremes, right? The couple can navigate their way forward when each person is willing to look at what is no longer working and see the benefits, the possibilities of what the other person is suggesting. It's challenging to change our beliefs, to change our labels for what's desirable and undesirable, to open our minds to new ideas, particularly when it requires us to change our identity. Right? Another example is being an introvert versus an extrovert. Most people label themselves as one or the other, but, even introverts need some time with other people. Could be in public, could be in a small group, maybe one-on-one, but even the most extroverted people need some time alone. Right? The impact of the COVID pandemic has created some mental health impacts for many individuals because they lost their social skills. They lost their friendships. The poor middle schoolers that, that's go through that very difficult time of being in middle school where everything is really difficult, but they're learning how to have relationships with who they are and accepting other people as they are. Well, they didn't have that time. So now they're arriving in high school when they're supposed to be coming into their own, and they're still dealing with middle school learning, right? COVID created a lot of anxiety and depression, and we're grieving the death, dealing with the mental health issues of our son that he went through. And so if people have too much time, not enough time alone, they can be exhausted. There's no self-care. There's just losing a sense of who they are as a unique individual if they're always out there connecting with everyone, So the third way is finding a balance of time by ourselves and with others and experimenting with discovering how much time we need in each polarity. We want to feel energized and fulfilled, but it's finding that balance. It's not an either or, but it's an and. Yes, and kind of existence. And so we talk about this moving from transactional to transformative relationships. When we get set in our ways, we have fixed expectations and always doing everything the same. And it's easy for our relationships to get into a set pattern. Parents, you get up, you get your kids fed, you get them to school, you go to work, you do your work efficiently, you pick your kids up, you take them to soccer, you get them fed, you get them in bed, you get up the next morning, and you do it again. It's the same thing over and over. But when is the time to sit down and listen to our children? When is the time to have a friendship where we allow ourselves to not be perfect, to break down, to be confused, to let life be chaos? Because when you've got something all organized and set, there's chaos before you get to the next place. You have to, when you're building with Legos, you have to break apart this wonderful creation to have the next one, right? And so that requires a safe space. And that is one thing that our spiritual centers have historically been about. People go to talk to ministers and counselors to work through this stuff. And when we have a spiritual center, this is a safe place where we can accept people as we are. I know when my first husband passed, I had been a practitioner for many years, but there was a period of years when I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I couldn't be there for other people in that way. But other people were there for me, right? We took turns. And then I came back into my own, and then I was able to be there for another person and another. And that's what we're about. And that is why it is so important that the spiritual centers, there's been this decline across the board in churches. And we need to remember the purpose of this spiritual center. It's, we talk about being spiritual without being religious, and having that sacred space. And so this is what we want to try out new things in our center, and we want to have time where we can just be together, to enjoy a sunset, to just be alive and in the midst of wonder. There doesn't need to be anything more than just feel that joy of being alive, of feeling love, which doesn't require anything other than the presence of spirit, the presence of wholeness, the presence of love. And so this is one reason our e-bike group is so popular, because the photographs they sent me this week of being down by Fallen Leaf Lake, in the fall colors and just going on a new path, it was so beautiful, and they were together in awe, right? And and this is also why that's part of self-care, but that was community care. And we want our center to be a place where everyone comes, and when they arrive, they know that it's a place to be safe. It's a place where they know they can discover themselves. They can discover the truth that they are a spiritual being having a human existence. And we can support each other as a community. In Janushian thinking, in this paradoxical mindset, it's really a spiritual practice. And it's the paradox of being human, that we are both physical beings, and we're infinite spiritual beings at the same time. And having that consciousness that allows us to have that shift from one to the other. At that cosmic level of consciousness. There was a quote from the reading this morning where it talked about when you're everywhere present and nowhere at the same time, right? It is that cosmic consciousness where there is no words, there is formless. There is just knowing that we are intimately connected with spirit. There is no separation whatsoever. And that is what gives us our strength to move forward, to be grounded in that truth. There's infinite ways I guess I didn't get my water tonight. There are infinite ways for the infinite visible to express itself in the world. Oh, thank you. It's so wonderful to have a husband sometimes. Okay. But there are infinite ways for the infinite invisible to express itself in the world. And we can appreciate ourselves in a unique way, and we can appreciate each and every person as an expression of the one. This is the way we have richer and fuller lives, and we have also the opportunity to courageously learn to get comfortable with discomfort. And when we sit in the silence, there's a great picture that's in the newsletter this week about a man sitting in silence. And we allow our sense of separation from universal mind to dissolve. We become aware of infinite possibilities and points of view beyond what we have known and experienced before. Spirit works its way in to our conscious awareness. In The Science of Mind magazine, Ernest Holmes in 1971 said, "And let us not forget the importance of keeping our minds in a state of good-natured flexibility. Yes, we must be flexible and tolerant, as well as positive and affirmative." Right? And he also said in the book, This Thing Called You, "Keep the doorway of your mind open, feeling, thinking, communing with this life, knowing that it fills you with light and with power. When we can't see our way forward, when we feel lost, when we sit with Spirit, it will fill our hearts and light our path." And that is, what Michael and I have been doing a lot of these last few weeks. And so, as we continue to play with paradoxes and the polarities that come up in our lives, it's important that we gently hold on to our beliefs and our ideas and even our identity as one with Spirit, as we assess what's working and not working in our lives and consider new possibilities that take us to a higher level of experience, as we let go of what we've known. And we discover a balance between the polarities in our individual lives and a world that works for everyone. We have to look no farther than the Hamas-Israeli conflict. We see this untenable situation. It's a cycle of violence that keeps repeating itself. Yes, the Hamas attacks on the Israeli communities and the innocent civilians, men, women, and children, were brutal acts of tribal warfare. That's been going on for centuries, right? And yes, confining 2 million Palestinians, civilians, in an open-air prison for decades without adequate work or food or shelter for their families. It's dehumanizing, right? And yes, most Israelis and Palestinians want to live their hot lives in safety, peace, and harmony. That's what we all want, right? And yes, the nations of the world can step up and work together to create a path for lasting peace in Palestine and for all of God's children everywhere on this planet. One of the news clips I heard this morning, the people of Israel, they've begun a change. They've been protesting over the judicial system in their country and all of the things going on with their leadership. But now it's different. They're connecting into that truth of what their values are, of what they want to stand for, who they are. And so they're saying, we want to stand for peace. We want to stand for wholeness. We want to trust in God. We believe in atonement, and we believe in love. And this government has to change to represent that for us and for the future of us and the world. And so Spirit is there. Through all of this violence, there are these cracks that are revealing this new path forward. And perhaps the world is being united to, this time, step up and live according to our values. All is God, and all is good. That is the paradox of being a physical being, having a spiritual, it is the paradox of being a spiritual being, having a physical existence, finding comfort in discomfort, in change. Let's take this to prayer. Let me try the water again, Michael. Thank you. Okay. And so as we come together, we know that there was one power, one presence in the world that is God, that is love, that it is clarity, that it is wholeness. And as we have set our spiritual mind treatment for the highest and best to unfold for our center and for us each as individuals and for the world, we now need to surrender ourselves to knowing that we are indeed one with Spirit, that there is no separation, and we let go of anything that would block that highest and best. We let go of our own expectations of what could or should or be. And we speak our word for that truth, for that peace and wholeness and love to be the truth of life everywhere. And so we let go and let God manifest it. For the infinite invisible knows even greater ways than we could ever imagine. But as we speak our word and we release that word into the law, it is done. And we don't restrict it to our view. We open it up and open our arms wide to receive the love of Spirit, the infinite expression of life that has gone on since time immemorial. And as we do, we feel that gentle caress of Spirit, loving us just as we are, as strong as we are, and as broken as we are, as loving as we are, and needing to heal as we are. And so we make a stand for this truth. We cling together as this spiritual center, a center of love, a center for spiritual living in Tahoe-Truckee. And so we let go of what has been, and we are each touched by that love within us. And we find the capability to stretch and grow and to share that love that fills us full to overflowing, and to share that love with the world. And each of us listens to that inner calling of what we are called to do, to be in this center, to be a center of love, to care for the whole community, to care for ourselves. For whatever we have done unto the least of these, my brethren, you have done unto me, as Jesus taught. And so we are willing to step forward. We are willing to see where we have thought that there was not enough leadership, not enough time, not enough money, whatever we saw, that falsehood is broken and blasted through. We surrender it, and we see capability. We see new life coming forward. We see new leaders stepping up. We see old leaders rejuvenated. We see the Tinker Toys put together in a new way. We see this center as a vibrant center of wholeness in this community. Whatever form it evolves into, we see this building being part of its greater next to be. We know that it is all God and it is all good. And so we find comfort in the discomfort of change, of evolution, and we celebrate that we are a part of it. We celebrate that we are growing and becoming something greater ourselves, because it grows us as well. We are part of the loving future of possibilities for this world, as individuals, as a center, and as the human race. I thank you, Father, Mother, God, for this knowing, for this day, for this moment, for this shift that is rippling across the world, now manifesting in wholeness, in clarity, and in love. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And together we say, and so it is.